Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I repaired a Bosch convection oven that had liquid spilled in it. To start, locate your circuit breaker panel and find the breaker for your oven. As you can see, breakers 13 and 15 are the ones I needed to flip off in order to cut power to the oven. Once you have turned power off to the oven, pull the oven door down and remove the 3 Torx screws holding the top panel of the oven in place. Slowly lift the panel from the bottom upwards and then pull upwards to separate it from the oven itself. Be careful since there are a few wires attached to the front panel. Take a picture in case you need to reference where each connector goes. However, each connector is designed so that it only plugs into one component only. Disconnect the ground wire, the 2 plugs that attach to the left and right knobs, the wire for the touch controls, and finally the plug that attaches to the display board. Put the panel aside and loosen the 2 screws holding the oven into your cabinets. Now you can pull the oven out so that you can access the main circuit board on top of the oven. If you have hardwood floors, you can put down some cardboard or a towel to protect the floor when pulling the oven out and resting it on the ground. The best place to pull the oven out is from the top of the oven compartment as mentioned in the instructions. Optionally, you can remove the oven door and oven racks if they get in your way. Once you have pulled out the oven to allow access to the top area, you can either do what I did and remove the screw for the top access panel, or skip to where I found out that the whole top cover had to come off in order to access all screws holding on the main circuit board. This is a good opportunity to take a picture of where all the connections go on the board. You'll see that I made a mistake on where one wire went, but having a picture for reference saved me in the end. I will show a picture of the board later in the video before I removed it in case you may have forgotten to take one. Unplug all the wires to the main circuit board and remove all the screws holding down the board to the oven itself. I removed the top shield since it needed to be cleaned anyways, but you can leave it on. There's 4 screws on the top of the oven that hold the top cover on and 1 on each side of the oven. Remove all 6 of these screws and the top cover should come right off. Surprisingly, there wasn't anything protecting the main circuit board from liquid, and ultimately the main circuit board along with the display panel circuit board had to be replaced, which both cost around $250 shipped. From what I've read online, usually one damaged circuit board leads to other circuit boards being damaged, so keep this in mind when you're repairing your Bosch oven. Now remove any screws holding the board in place and any wires that are still attached to the board. There should be a total of 7 screws that hold the board in place. Compare the new board with the old board and make sure they match. You'll need to remove the plastic spacers and transfer them to the new board. The best advice I can provide for removing these plastic spacers is to pinch the top with some pliers and pull them out from the bottom. To install them onto the new circuit board, I would recommend tilting the spacer, fitting one side in, and then pinching or wedging the other side into place. It's hard to describe, but you can probably get an idea of what I'm doing in the video. Oh, and you may get a cut or two from this, so be careful when removing and installing these spacers. Take the 7 longer screws and reattach to the main circuit board, and refer to the picture as to where all the wires attach to on the board. Do you guys remember when I said that I made a mistake on where one of these wires go? Well, you're about to see it. As for the large white plugs that go on the top right of the board, each one is pinned differently. So keep that in mind when reattaching these plugs, otherwise further damage may occur to the board or other components in the oven when you try and operate it. While you have the top cover off, this may be a good opportunity to clean it if it's dirty. Reattach the top cover. There's 4 screws on top and 1 on each side. Clean the top shield if needed and screw it into place with 2 screws, and finally replace the 1 screw that holds the top axle panel in place if you had removed it. Now on to replacing the display board. There's an outer and inner shell to the front panel. To separate these, pull the left and right knob out and away from the panel. The knobs are notched so that they only go back on one way, so don't worry about how to align them properly. Now from the back of the front panel, pull the inner shell out, which will allow you to access the display board. Getting the display board out is a little tricky and requires a little bit of finesse. From one side, pull this plastic tab away from the board, then repeat for the other plastic clip. Make sure you don't use too much force, since you may accidentally damage the clip, causing the display board to not hold in place after reinstallation. Again, check to make sure the new part matches up with the old one before installing. When installing the new display board, you'll see that one side of the tabs of the plastic piece that holds the board in place is different from the other. The board should be slotted into the tabs that are right angled, and the tabs on the other side are used to secure the board into place. Also, when installing the new board, make sure the connector is facing the top of the oven. Otherwise, you'll have to take it back out and flip the board around. Place the inner shell back into the outer shell and make sure the holes on the bottom of the panel line up between both shells, and push the knobs back onto the rotary switches. Installation of the front panel is essentially the opposite of removing it. Plug all wires back in, slide the front panel over the top protruded area of the oven, and then push the bottom of the panel into the oven so that it sits flush. Make sure all wires are properly tucked in before replacing the 3 screws that hold the front panel in place. Of course the oven light also went out, so I replaced this as well. As you can see in the video, it's located in the top left of the oven compartment, and the glass cover is removed by turning it counterclockwise. Remove the bad bulb by turning it counterclockwise as well. Compare it with the new one to make sure it's the same, and reinstall the new bulb by turning it clockwise into the socket. The glass cover goes back in by screwing into the oven compartment clockwise. If you remove the oven door or oven racks, reinstall them now. Turn on the circuit breaker and hopefully you'll see something similar to what you see in the video. Finally, test the oven by running it. Here I just checked to see if the oven would heat to 200 degrees and it worked. I hope this video was helpful if you're experiencing similar problems. Links to the parts are in the description below. Comment, like, or subscribe, and if you feel like this video is helpful for you, please consider supporting the channel by donating a few bucks by going to the link in the video description below. See you in the next video.